Welcome back to the Breaking the Pattern podcast. I'm Joshua, and this is my lovely co-host today, Jera Lee, my wife. You can see that Tim's not here, and so the picture's a little bit better.
Wow.
Tim and I have been trying to do the podcast for the last couple of weeks, but we've struggled because we're new. And one day I couldn't get the podcast to upload, and then the next time I thought we were recording, and we did like an hour and a half, and it didn't record. So,
So he gets the special honor of having me today. Because Tim's not available today.
Yay!
Yay.
Breaking the pattern.
Best of luck to you.
So, Jera Lee, I'm going to ask the question. I already know what you're going to say. Why are you here today?
Because you told me I had to be. Well, he asked me to be. And I said, I guess.
Thanks, babe.
You're welcome.
So, well, let's talk. We're going to talk a little bit today, more along the lines of breaking the pattern, but part of that conversation, because you all know a little bit about me, and you know some about Tim, and we've talked about Jera Lee, and we've talked about Tim's wife, but let's talk to you directly about...
Get the truth? Right. The real story? Okay.
Yes. About your faith, and like how you grew up in the faith, and then how that transitioned and what it looks like now. So we'll start with like, when did you decide that you wanted to follow Jesus, and how did that progress in the early years?
I was 6, I believe.
Okay.
And I remember sitting in church one day next to my friend who was maybe a year or two older than me. And we were sitting in a pew because we were in a Baptist church, and him and I were sitting next to each other alone by ourselves. And they did what did they call it? Not the altar call.
The invitation.
Thank you. Invitation. And he decided he wanted to go up front. And so I just kind of followed along because I felt something in me that was more of a pull to do something, but I didn't know what it was. But I was like, I want whatever he's doing. And not just to follow him, but I wanted what he was doing. I think I went up front maybe the next week. And then we were baptized a couple weeks later. So that's kind of how it started. And when I was about 15 is when I was at camp and I was by myself. Well, we were in service. And that's when I really felt the call from the Lord to really step up and be something completely different.
And what grade were you in at 15? What is that?
Are you checking to see if I was on grade level?
Serious question. I'm trying to work the timeline in my head.
Maybe, I guess that would be maybe a sophomore.
Okay. So I'll have some confession time right now. Like, I did not know the story of when you became a Christian and when you decided to follow Jesus.
Wow.
And we've been together for 20 plus years, 20-ish years.
Wow.
And I did not know that story. And that was the first time I have ever heard that.
Wow.
Right here. Live.
That's a problem.
I mean, is it?
Maybe I should have shared that with you.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's fine though, because I know you follow Jesus.
Yeah, and I think for so
formulaic.
long we were taught that sharing your testimony is sharing the day you came to know Jesus. Yeah. And our faith has grown so much since then that it's like we've kind of grown away from that, where it's like when somebody says share your testimony, I immediately go into what the Lord has done in the last year. And I guess I do forget to share that some people want to know when your faith started.
Okay, so 6 years old, you felt the pull from God.
But I wasn't sure what it was. Like, I wasn't old enough to be like, I'm surrendering my life to Jesus Christ. And here's what faith, it was more of like a pull to something different. And a pull to something I wanted, but I didn't know what it was. And so I believe that the Lord still saved me that day, and I still became a follower of Jesus that day.
Part of the family.
Yeah.
Adopted into his family. So, okay, confession time.
But 9 years later, it took 9 years to really understand what I did.
Right. So do you know that when I accepted Christ?
6 years old. Man.
She knows everything about me. So yeah, I was 6 years old, and I had a similar experience. Baptist church, invitation time. My dad was the pastor at the time, and I saw someone else that I knew, and I was like, I want to know what it means to follow Jesus, even though I didn't fully understand it. But I remember even the baptism part, which is crazy. Interesting. Okay, so at age 15, you decided to step into actually following and understanding what it meant. We have a lot of kids too, so it's all good. Okay, so back to age 15.
And they distract us.
At age 15, what shifted? What did it look different?
I kept feeling something, like I constantly felt guilty for something. Constantly. Like something was really, really heavy on me all the time that I just felt guilty for. All the time. And it was so pressing to me that it was like I couldn't figure it out. And every time I turned around, I felt horribly guilty and just like I had done something wrong. And I could never figure out what that feeling was. But at 15 at camp is when I felt the Lord really draw me to himself.
Do you remember what camp?
Sybil's Baptist Camp.
Where?
New Mexico.
Okay.
Cloudcroft, Mayhill, maybe it's Mayhill. I remember the little sanctuary room we were sitting in and the hard plastic chairs we were sitting in, and which I thought were the most comfortable things ever. And I just remember that call very clearly. And then, from there, growth started happening. And that's when some real life stuff started happening and I started growing.
And then fast forward that, so 15 all the way to 18. There was some pretty major shifts there.
During that time, I found out how heavy of a drinker my father was. That was a big thing for me during that period of time. So I found out, that had been hidden from me for 15 years. And I mean, I knew he drank, but I didn't realize how severe it was. So during that period, I found out how strong that was, and that kind of spiraled. That's also one of the first times that I ever heard my dad tell me he loves me. Was when a night he was very drunk and he told us that he was dying. And during that time of him, he brought us each one into the room separately and told us he was dying and told us this was the end for him and that he loved us. But that's the first time, maybe not the first time, but the only time I can remember my dad telling me he loves me. And which it didn't mean a whole lot because he was drunk. But at the same time, I took it for what it was, knowing that feeling was somewhere inside of him, trying to communicate that to us. So that was a big step. The other thing that was really big for me was I wanted to be married, and I was 15 years old. But I knew that was a desire. I didn't want to be married at 15, but I wanted marriage. I wanted family. And I knew that was almost a calling for me, and I wanted to be in ministry with my husband. And the guys I was dating at the time, that was definitely not the route they were going. So I was really confused. And then I received a promise ring from one of them. And I remember during that time also, between 15 and 18 years old, he gave me that promise ring. And I remember going to church one night and being so excited about the promise ring. I showed my pastor's wife, who was also a very strong mentor in my life and a mom figure to me. And I remember showing her and being so excited, and she was like, yeah, no, that's not good. I do not approve. And I remember sitting on the kitchen counter in the church showing her and being so excited, and she was like, yeah, no. And I was so frustrated because I'm like, why can't you be happy for me? Little did I know she knew more of what was going on behind the scenes than I could see, because she was walking with the Lord and she was following the Lord. And the Lord was speaking to her things about me that I didn't even realize yet. So.
And she had visions and dreams, and God gave those things to her, and she would speak life over people.
Yeah.
And truth over what she had seen and
yeah, and
heard.
he would speak things to her before the other person even knew. So he had already spoken something to her about me, and I didn't know. And so that's why she was like, no, I don't even care, because this is not the truth. This is not what's supposed to be. So that was a big thing that happened in that time. And the ages of 15 and 18 is when we met. So
your desire at 15 was to be married. You're dating other guys. One of them gave you a promise ring.
Not guys. Not you. You act like I was
There were
dating
guys
so
after
many
her.
guys.
There were guys after her.
Oh, okay. Yes.
There were several guys after you.
Yes.
But you were like, no.
No. I was choosy. Yeah, picky and choosy.
Which is good. That's healthy.
But I was different, because I wanted long term. I wanted somebody. I was like, I want to be married. I want to be married. And so I remember sitting in the church parking lot in my car, just asking the Lord to show me. And just confessing to Him, I want to be married. I want a relationship that's forever. Not many people say that at 16.
So you were breaking a pattern.
Already. But like we've talked about, you and I both broke patterns all through school and all through.
Well, we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
too.
we were always different, and so this was no.
But you were breaking cultural patterns even 20 plus years ago.
Yeah. Because not many 16-year-olds are looking at the future, and so sitting there at 16, however old I was, I don't remember the dates, but just yearning for that relationship. And little did I know that it wasn't too long after that is when you and I were going to meet.
Yeah. So to set that up, I think I was there when you got the promise ring.
Probably.
Because I remember going, oh, okay.
Probably.
So I had moved up to the town that she lived in, and I became the intern at the church there. And one of the things that I had set in my mind was to not build a relationship with the girls of the youth group. I was in my early 20s, just graduated college. So that was really one of my goals, I guess, was...
Because that would be the legal thing to do.
That would be the legal thing of it. I don't want any false pretenses or anybody thinking that I was trying to do something more than just deliver God's word and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so our first encounter with each other was a weekend trip that they were driving from New Mexico down to Dallas. And I had just moved from Texas in February to a youth conference, Student Life Youth Conference.
And he had been at the church a few weeks, and I did not even know the man existed. No, he was at the church at all.
I think I'd only been there a couple of weeks, maybe.
Yeah. And so, which that could say a lot for me. Maybe I don't pay attention enough. But there was a reason. There was obviously...
I have more stories to back up the not paying attention part.
I don't know what you're talking about. So that particular weekend, we were on the van and getting ready to go, and there were probably a total of 8 to 10 of us in the van going, and we kept waiting, and I'm like, what are we waiting on? And they're like, oh, Joshua's coming. And I was like, I don't even know who you're talking about. And they're like, the new youth intern. No, I don't know the new youth intern. And I said, I have no idea. And they're like, well, he's been here a few weeks. And they came and threw his bag in the back of the van. And he walked around the side of the van and opened up the doors. And I looked at him, and I kid you not, my first thoughts were, I'm going to marry that man. And I beat myself up because I was like, here you are, focused on long-term goals, and you have this guy, and it's like, no. And I immediately, I really, beat myself up for it because I was like, that is so weird. But see, at the time, I didn't know what it meant to truly hear from the Lord and how the Lord spoke to me. And so looking back, that was the Lord speaking to me and saying, this is your husband. You remember what you were talking to me about within the last year? Here he is. Now you can't have him yet, but here he is. And so, and I can say that now because I know what it's like for the Lord to speak to me now. And I've learned, and I have grown with the Lord and grown to learn what his voice is to me and how he speaks to me as his daughter. And so looking back, I was like, okay, that was him telling me in the most unique way, very different and odd and all the things, because that's what our story was going to be. It was very unique and very different. Very different. That is not normal of anything. No. So.
But then, like in that moment, you said that you beat yourself up, so guilt and shame entered the scene.
Immediately.
And that's from the enemy and tried to destroy what God was trying to accomplish and do, and so immediately to get you to believe a lie, so that you would walk in guilt and shame for even having that thought, when that thought was from the Lord, but the guilt and shame came from the enemy.
Yeah, who tried to destroy it.
And take it away.
Yep, and he kept trying, and so I was, what did I had, maybe 17 on that trip. 16.
16. Maybe.
Yeah. So after the trip, when we got back, and like throughout the trip, we were very much like pushed away from each other, but I was still trying to understand what in the hay bales I just heard. And I was like, I don't understand. After the trip, we got back home, he began getting involved, of course, with the youth and all of us, and I was still trying to understand everything, and then he connected with my brother. And then that's when you started developing a relationship with him and mentoring him. And so which was kind of which kind of led into you being attached to our family. So that was kind of what led into that, was you being with him.
Which was also like unexpected, like not something that I planned or you planned. It was God moving me to connect with your brother, because I believe that God wanted us to be, like he and I to be connected for him. And then also it opened the door for me to connect with your family, like you said. And I was welcomed in as kind of like part of the family while I was spending time with your brother.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads to, like, I don't know if it was April or May or something, maybe March, April or May. I can't remember exactly, but I was praying to the Lord. I was living alone. Remember that? In that trailer, and on top of the mountain.
Oh.
One of my most favorite places to sit in the afternoons and the mornings was on the deck of that house. I was asking the Lord, I was like, God, I'm so alone. I want to be married. Would you show me who that person is, even if it's not time? And then I reiterated, even if it's not time.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jeralee's name came to my mind. And also at that time, I didn't understand fully how the Lord spoke to us, because the way we were raised was the only way to know anything from God was to read the Bible, and that's the only way God speaks. That's another podcast, but God speaks to us individually in our thoughts, and some thoughts are our thoughts, some thoughts are the enemy's, placing them there, and some are God, and He's always speaking. And so I heard from the Lord Jeralee's name, and I fought that for months out of a place of protection, self-protection, protecting my character. My pride was in the way. I was like, I'm not talking to her. I'm not going to talk to her, because I don't want to get in trouble, and I don't want something to happen that shouldn't happen, and so I refuse. But as time continued on, I continued to grow a friendship with her brother and her family, and I could not. I kept fighting, and it was obvious to a lot of people, I guess, but not me, which led to a Disciple Now weekend.
Oh, yes.
To a point where it was a great weekend. I had brought some friends up, a couple of girls from college that helped lead some girl groups. The last night before they had to go back, the two of them and you and I.
We were at, you mean at our house?
At your house.
We were doing games.
Yeah, games and stuff.
And yeah, and over the conversations, it came up like they said, Jerry, what do you look for in a guy? What are you wanting in a relationship? And I said, somebody that is pure. And I don't even remember everything else I said.
That was the main part.
But that was the main part, was just somebody who has saved themselves for marriage sexually. And because that's what I grew up, that's how I was raised, was that's what you do and that's who you marry. And you know, when I was much younger, probably 12 or 13, we went through True Love Waits, and so, you know, I had my True Love Waits ring and all that, and so that's just what I always expected. Never dreamed that I would have anything different, and always thought it would be wrong if I ever got with somebody who was not pure. And so when I said that, he got really upset and really angry, and he kind of shut down the conversation. He left and the table, and I was like, what happened? And I wasn't really sure.
When she said that, the enemy immediately, I didn't realize all this at the time either, but was immediately going, see, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. She wants somebody that's pure, and that's not you, because you screwed up in high school. You messed up. You messed up in college. And so I got mad, and I got offended, and it was like I started saying, see, God, you're wrong. I've been right the whole time. God, you're wrong. And I got the girls, and I said, you guys, it's time to go. You got to get up and go to the airport or whatever the next day or whatever they were doing. And I left, and I was coming back to pick your brother up that night because he and I were going to go, I don't know if we were going camping or
Probably.
something. And I remember driving back from dropping them off, and the radio was on. And there's a song called You've Been Given Innocence Again by Switchfoot. And what's really cool about it is there wasn't really like a Christian radio station up there. And so this song came over the radio as I'm dealing with this in my mind and with God going, what is happening? I don't understand. And this song comes on that you've been given innocence again. And I just started crying in the truck on the way back to her house. And I showed back up at her house. Her mom asked me what was wrong. And we stepped outside on the porch, and I told her what the problem was. And I told her what I had been dealing with and what I had been fighting. And her mom starts crying on the porch. And she basically said, we already knew. And I said, we? Well, we was the pastor, the pastor's wife. The pastor's wife had already had a dream and already knew what was going to happen. And so Jerry's mom already knew what was going to happen. And she said, we've just been waiting and praying for God to work it out in His time. And I said, okay. I said, well.
I did not know about that conversation.
This is your first time hearing it?
No, like, at the time,
yeah.
I don't think I realized that y'all had talked. Because it took me some time to come to accept that it was okay for me to accept you as my future husband. So we still just kind of kept things to ourselves because, one, I was 17 years old. And,
well, I ended up talking to you.
Well, yeah,
that night.
but that night?
I said, can I talk to her? I need to tell her why I got upset. Because
oh,
you were
yeah,
wondering
yeah.
why I got upset.
Okay.
And you sat on the counter in the kitchen.
I sat on the counter a lot in high school.
She sat on the counter a lot. And then I said, I need to tell you something. And I told you what I'd been dealing with fighting against God. That I believed God was telling me that you were the one that I was supposed to marry. And you started crying. And I thought, here we go again. I was wrong, And then you said, that's something that I believe is supposed to happen also.
Yes, that's right. I was thinking that conversation happened later.
Saying that.
Yeah. Wow.
And so we were like, okay, well, I guess we'll discuss.
Yeah, because it was in the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Guess we'll discuss how to handle this, because you had another year of school left.
Yeah.
And by this time, you were 18.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's right.
How many years have we been married? This guy knows.
This gal is learning.
So that kind of shifted
Yeah.
everything for your final year, or your senior year.
And so we did something called courting. We courted each other, which that is a term that most people do not use anymore. But it meant that we spent time together with family, always. We were never alone. And so he would come over to the house, or I would go over to the pastor's house, and because that's where he lived.
I ended up moving in with them for a while.
Yeah. And so we would hang out over there with them. And it was really cool because it gave us an opportunity to learn each other in a safe environment instead of being so focused on each other's bodies necessary. You know, like what most relationships, that's what they focus on, is like intimacy immediately. But we got the privilege of getting to know each other in other ways when, I mean, honestly, like, our bodies were longing for each other because we knew we were supposed to be together, but it was not time. And so at the time we were upset because we were like, we just want this to happen. We just want to come together, get married, and intimacy, and you know, everything to come together. So because we were like, okay, we know this is supposed to be, so let's make it happen. Kind of a difficult year, but looking back, it was also a really, really precious time that we got to have with each other, because we got to know each other, and we also got to be mentored by our pastor and his wife, and that was an incredible gift that we had. Incredible gift, because we loved them. They were like another set of parents to us, but we loved their marriage, and they were just a really beautiful example. So we got that time, that whole year, and to be mentored by them, and yeah, it was great. It was great.
So that kind of walked into, like, the fall of her senior year. She took classes at the college.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I'm reminding her of all these things.
Yep.
She took classes at the college.
I was going to nursing school, and I started, my senior year. I was taking classes at the high school through FFA to gain college credit, but also I was also going to the college. Mm-hmm. And during that time, during one of my classes, I was approached by a guy, and okay, so there were a lot of guys. That's 3. We're only up to 3. So.
Oh. How about the summer before?
4. Oh, man. Anywho.
We won't name any names.
Nope. Nobody's name is getting brought up. But yes, there were a lot of relationships, and I think it was the enemy trying, like, any possible way. Because
not that they were bad guys.
No. So what I was going to say was I was really, there were so many different opportunities, because I never once was one, and I know that there are guys to this day that could still tell you that they tried to do many things with me, and I would always say no. And so there were times I would get made fun of a lot because I wouldn't do X, Y, or Z. I wouldn't do this. Oh, we know Jerry Lee's not going to do that. And so I got looked at, and I'm not trying to say like you're
a holy roller.
Yeah, whatever. It was more like, no, I'm just not going to do that. And so there were,
because you were trying to set yourself apart in God's eyes,
yeah,
and to be different than what the culture wanted you to be, like everyone around you.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because according to Scripture, and even what I've been reading this morning, sexual immorality, all of those things are still a sin, and it's still something we should run from.
Yeah.
But even though Paul talks about this, that once we were foolish, I think it's like 1 Corinthians chapter 6, He says that once you were foolish in your sexual immorality and you were an idolater, you were these things, but because of Jesus, you have been justified before God. And so what you were doing is you were trying to live a life that was already set apart, and you were breaking the pattern early on. Whereas I wanted to break the pattern, but I fell into the world and the culture and believed the lie, and that's where I get my identity.
And I was still believing lies too, but yeah, I didn't go that. I just didn't go that route.
So the guy at college.
Yes, that one. So yeah, there were quite a few.
And then she came to me and she was like, I just don't know if this is right.
I did.
I don't know if we're supposed to do this. And I'm going, okay.
I did, and because this guy approached me and he was in my class and I don't even know what attracted me to him besides he was attracted to me. And so...
Well, you didn't think you were beautiful. You didn't, all those things, all the lies, and somebody else showed interest besides me.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, he thinks I'm, like, I can see that.
Yeah. Yeah. And because there was still a part of me dealing with insecurities in my past with you and saying, well, he has ulterior motives. He's just doing it for X, Y, and Z, or this isn't, whatever. So, so we pushed through that, pushed him away. And so there were a lot of opportunities for guys like that because I think the enemy was trying to use all my relationships and trying to go at it different ways to say, well, here, this guy will do this guy will do this, and anything possible. And I could just kind of see him now scrambling like, I got to do something. And so just trying to get any guy possible. And so it didn't work. So fast forward to May.
Whoa, wait a minute. What attracted you to me? There had to be some sort of attraction.
Oh my gosh.
It's an honest question. The people want to know.
You want me to say your body?
No, of course not.
No. Okay, what?
I want you to be honest.
Okay, what really attracted me was leadership. That attracted me the most because that was a desire the Lord put in my heart, was to be married to a man in leadership and authority. Because I knew that I wanted to be, or that the Lord was calling me into, we're all called into ministry. So when I say we're called into ministry, I don't think that's accurate. Because we're all called to minister. So when I say I felt called into ministry, meaning I felt called into church leadership with a husband. So
church. It's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think that's what attracted me the most was, number one, the Lord told me, which I didn't necessarily know that was him at the time. But two, it was leadership. It was just a form of your authority.
Maybe some of the first time I've heard this.
No, it's not. I promise you. I can 100% promise you this was not the first time he heard this. But moving on. We'll just act like it was. Yeah.
So what attracted me to you? Do you know?
Nothing. At the beginning.
At first, absolutely nothing. That is so sad, but so true. There was nothing for the first several months that even pulled me in her direction.
Then after that?
Don't say it. This podcast is rated PG. No, I would say that physical appearance obviously did attract me. I'm a big physical sight person, but well, this applies to that.
Which was really hard for me to accept.
That's true.
It was really, really, really hard because I never thought that I was beautiful. I always thought that I was overweight, and like now I wish I could be as skinny as I thought I was. I mean, I wish I could be as fat as I thought I was in high school. So I struggled with the physical stuff because the physical appearance of how I looked, because I never thought I was beautiful. And I had family members tell me frequently how fat I was and how much I was gaining weight, or I need to change this about my body, I need to change that. And so I constantly was hearing that I had to change that. So when he came along and he thought I was beautiful, I immediately thought, you have ulterior motives.
I was trying to manipulate her.
Like, there's no way you think there's no way. So it took years for me to accept that.
Like 12,
like we're talking
years.
Even more. Like, there are times even today that I still have to catch it's not near like it was. But it's much, much better now.
So let's talk about that real quick. So I'm going to say this. Her hair, I loved that curly hair. Drove me nuts. I loved it. But I'm going to hit this, and then we're going to go back to the lies. I saw her that summer before the D Now get in front of a group of women at the New Mexico Baptist Conference or Convention, whatever they call it, and speak on stage to a group of women. And it was from authority, it was from her heart, from Scripture, from what God was telling her. I saw her do that, and I was like, it's confirmed. This is the woman I want to be with. Because at that age, you're going to get up there and share what God's done in your life and share testimony of faith and do it with authority. Like, that was huge. That attracted me a lot, and I began to look at her differently from the perspective of she desired to grow with the Lord, she desired to know God more, she desired to have a relationship, and she wanted to show other people how to have that same relationship. And so, yes, physical appearance was also a part of it, but that spiritual side of it, and I know that's also breaking the pattern. I know it is, and that's fine, because I don't care. But God was showing me, this is why, because you guys are going to come together and you're going to do great things. And I didn't understand that then. I understand it now. And I understand how we walk now is different than the way we walked then. But let's go back to the appearance and the lies. So you took on the lies from the enemy that you were not beautiful, and that people are just trying to manipulate you to get what you want. Well, that came from childhood all the way through growing up. And it just continued on in our marriage for years. And I have different things that I had to work through. But yours was manipulation. That everyone is out to manipulate you, right? Including your own husband. The one whom God told you, this is the man. And the one who he told me, this is the woman. And so we had to walk through some really ugly stuff. And to the point now that sometimes I tell her, you look beautiful. There's still that like, well, does he mean that?
And that's on me. I have to catch myself. I mean, like, what are you believing? Why could you not accept that from him? And I catch it now, and I'm like, okay, where did that come from? You're supposed to be able to accept that. And so I'm able to catch it now and work through it and fully accept that from him. So that is tremendously better.
Yeah, that's way different.
Yeah.
Than what it used to be.
Yeah. For sure. So going back to our story, fast forward to May, I graduated high school, and just barely just slid right through. I think they just let me go. So
that's okay.
They thought I was cute.
You did great at nursing school for the time you were there.
Until biology hit, and then I couldn't pass biology.
But you could now.
I could now. Anyway, so I graduated high school, and That was on May 20th. And on May 25th, he took me on our first date alone. Because the deal was you have to wait until she graduates. Even though she's 18, you need to wait until she graduates. Okay. And so that was the deal.
And I had moved from the church that I had started at, and I'd taken on a youth pastor position at a different church down the road. And so I was already at a new church since January of that year.
So after I graduated and before the date, so 5 days, he gave me an invitation. And it was an invitation to a date. And I got it.
Thought it was corny. She thought it was so corny.
I thought it was ridiculous. And I was like, this is so dumb.
Setting us up for success.
But the bigger part of that was I couldn't accept it. That's why I thought it was dumb, is because I could not accept the love that he was trying to show me. I could not accept what he wanted to give me. And so that was way too vulnerable for me. So I was pushing it away really, really hard because that was too much for me. Because if I didn't think that I was really worthy of having that. And so I was like, okay. And I remember my mom talking to me about it, and she was like, you need to be grateful for that. You need to enjoy what he gave you, and, and I was like, I know. And I couldn't process it at the time. I couldn't figure out a way to tell anybody that this doesn't feel right. Like, this doesn't feel like I'm worthy of it. And if I do enjoy it, I feel guilty for enjoying it. Because other people don't get this, so I don't deserve this. So
the enemy was really constantly working to tear us apart and tear us down and get us to live in a false identity.
And I didn't know how to deal with the enemy at the time.
All we knew at the time, like she and I both, all we knew was basically you just need to deal with it. Like, that's what religion teaches, just deal with it. Just push past it, or
ignore
cover it up, or ignore it.
Just ignore it. Just ignore it, but that does not work. So I did go on the date. I did accept the invitation. Looking back, it was a really cool day.
What did we do? On the spot.
You just took me, like, down the road to the little kid park.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was like, ooh. I'm just kidding.
Again, back joking. To the lies that the enemy tells us.
He sent me this invitation and said I needed to dress up, but I also needed to dress up for the evening, but it was all day. So he picked me up that morning. He had packed a lunch for us with chocolate-covered strawberries in there, one of my favorites. And
to this day, one of our favorites.
He took me to the park. You did take me to the park, but it was a nice park. He took me to the park. We ate lunch.
A little zoo.
And did we go to the zoo?
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember that part. But anyway, went to the park, went to the zoo, and then I think we went shopping.
Okay.
Then...
Oh, she does remember. Here it comes.
Somebody got a pedicure for the first time.
Last time.
And my friend walked by, got a picture. She showed up. She didn't know we were there. She just happened to be walking by, and she took a picture. So we do have proof. And somewhere back in the vault.
Last time, period.
Yeah. So he did get a pedicure. And then, what did we do that afternoon? Or is that all we did?
That was it. That was from about 10 to 2:30 or
3. Yeah. And then we went back to the house and got ready for the evening, and he borrowed a friend's car, which was a BMW
sedan.
And fancy little car. And so we got all dressed up and went to a fancy dinner. Did you have a flat on the way there? Yes.
It was low. The tire was low, so I aired it up on the way there. Mm-hmm. And we went from Cloudcroft to Tenney, New Mexico.
Which is near Ruidoso.
And it was a place called the Silver Dollar, which is no longer a restaurant there.
For real?
For real.
Aww.
But you knew that because we've been by there since then, and it's not.
Aww. Wow.
Made reservations, went to the restaurant.
Yep. And then afterwards he took me outside and they had a little pavilion. Yeah. Tiny. And so he brought music and we danced and then he proposed to me that night. And
Day one, proposal, all in the same day. Breaking the pattern.
Yep, 5 days of graduating. So, yep.
And that started the journey to 6 months later we got married.
And then not an issue, but he learned something about me really, really quickly. That I really love animals. And so we had just gotten married and I was already asking for a dog. And he was like...
I wasn't sure where you were going with this story.
Well, I could have gone a bunch of different directions, huh?
PG.
But that is when he learned quickly that I like animals. And I wanted a dog and he kept saying no. But so we got married in December. By February, I had a dog. And that was our little mater. And so we got him, and then he was kind of our first boy.
Yep.
And so after that, another crazy story before we talk about moving to Texas. This is also another time that looking back, we didn't realize what was actually happening, but now we can look back and be like, wow, the Lord speaks in some crazy ways. We were standing in the kitchen and we had already been kind of unsure of what we were supposed to do next, and he was kind of felt like he was supposed to go to seminary. What?
I was still serving at the church in Cloud Grove.
Yeah. But we just felt pulled a different direction. And so we were praying like, what do we do? Where do we go? And what are we doing? And so I remember us standing in the kitchen and we're like, Lord, if we are supposed to go somewhere else, please show us.
Give us a sign.
Yes. I kid you not. Immediately, the house shook like crazy. And stuff was falling out of the cabinets behind us and things were just shaking. I mean, we were like, what in the actual heck? And so something had hit the house. And so we go outside and the truck you were borrowing from a friend, the brakes had let off and it rolled down the hill and it hit the corner of the house. And so...
Didn't hurt the house or the truck.
Which was crazy.
Yeah.
And so it had to have done damage to that house.
It hurt the
siding.
deck.
Oh, the deck. That's right, because the deck caught
had to be repaired. Yeah.
So we were like, okay, all right, let's go.
Guess we're moving.
And so that was the start to us moving. So the three of us packed up in a Penske truck and headed to Texas.
4 months after we got married.
Yeah.
So we can start that on the next podcast.
Mm-hmm. So that was the beginning of our story. And then our other little fur baby that came along, same thing. He said, I wanted another dog, and he said no. And he said, okay, if you can find one for free. And
Don't ever say that, guys.
I said, hold my iced tea. Here we go. And so that's how we got our first little girl, our little fur baby girl. So those were our first two kids.
That's right.
For many, many years.
Many years before we had actual kids.
Yeah. We had those dogs for 15 years.
Yeah. That's right.
So yeah, that was the start to our story. And looking back, we dealt with a lot of fear, guilt, and shame through all those years. And knowing what we know now, we can sit here and say, I wish we knew how to do what we do now back then, and things might have looked different. But we also would have missed out. I mean, it would have been great.
Yeah.
And it would have been wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
But the Lord taught us so many things through all those trials we went through.
And He's been weaving the story together, a tapestry.
Mm-hmm.
He's been weaving that together since, the beginning of time, but looking back at everything that He put into place and the people He spoke to and He spoke to us, and we didn't even understand at the time that God spoke to us that way.
Yeah.
But through, our mentors at the time, teaching us a little bit about that, even though there wasn't a full understanding maybe, it's really cool to see where we were and where we are now. And how we started was listening to the Lord and not even realizing we were listening. But where we are now is striving to listen to the Lord. And when we don't hear from the Lord, we're going, okay, God, what's inside of me that I'm not breaking the pattern on? What am I following the world in, or believing the lies that's creating these issues that are blocking me from hearing from you? Yeah. And I can see now, walking through our story today, like how many patterns that we break.
Mm-hmm.
Just in the beginning of our story of, a year.
Mm-hmm.
That, it doesn't happen this way.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just meet somebody and know you're going to get married.
You don't just meet a youth in the youth group and know you're going to marry them.
You don't meet this
you don't
girl
do
5
that.
years younger than you in the youth
Yeah.
group. You don't go on a date and ask them to marry you the first night and get married 6 months later. Who does that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, not many. There are some. There are others out there that are breaking the pattern.
Yep.
And
who
so
have, yeah.
the story of
It's just not your typical story, yeah.
How we started is God is continuing to show us that we are different.
Yeah.
And I like being different. Even though there were lots of struggles over the years.
There were times where we wish we weren't different, only because we wanted to live in comfort.
We wanted to live in comfort.
But I wouldn't change that for anything now. Yeah. I wouldn't, because I want to be different. I want to live different. It's when you want to be comfortable. That's when you're like, I don't want to stick out. I want to stick to the pattern and go with the flow so I don't stick out.
I want to look like everybody else in this life, whether it's, and this is going to sting somebody, and that's okay. I'm not trying to do that, but I want to look like what the world says I should look like and what that culture says I should look like, or I want to look like what this denomination says I should look like, or this religion says I should look like. And that's, honestly, we walked into all of this at some point, you and I, separately and together, and we went, no, there's something else, there's something different.
Yeah.
And God clearly is telling us, you have to look different than these things, because it's about mirroring Jesus and how He walked in love and led with love, and continuing to transform, be renewed, transform in our mind through obedience to Christ Jesus. Obedience being listen and respond. That's the meaning of the word. Not obedience mean you need to do what I say, or you're going to get this. God says obedience means you're listening to me and you're responding to me, and that means breaking the pattern
of what the world might be telling you to do.
Mm-hmm.
just because Joe Schmo says it and the Lord says something different does not mean you have to listen to
Joe Schmo.
But that goes right along with what I even heard yesterday, with breaking the pattern of church. So the Lord is continuing to work in us and show us that things don't have to always look exactly like the world says they should in order for it to be right.
Because God is a God of the intuitive mind and the creative mind. Unique. He's made us unique. That's what He created us to be, His unique creation, each person individually. And so He calls us to be that person and to step into that name that He says that we are. And we don't have to be the name that everyone else says we are.
That's right.
So I'd love to talk about that next time.
Yeah.
If you're willing, are you willing? Let's ask her. Are you willing to come back and break the pattern?
Well, the pattern would say, yeah, you should come back. And I break the pattern, so
The pattern would
I'm
say,
just kidding.
the pattern would say, I don't want to be in front of the camera.
That's true. That is true. But I am breaking the pattern this year. So I'll come back.
Okay.
I'll come back.
Well, I want you to know that we've loved having you here today.
Well, I've loved being here.
And I'm so grateful for what God is doing in our life and what He's done in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And He's continuing to speak truth over us, and we get to share that with other people.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It's pretty cool.
So this has been Breaking the Pattern, episode whatever. And, because some have been recorded, but not recorded / not uploaded. And a couple of weeks, we'll have her back on either next week or in a couple of weeks. And we'll keep going down this journey of identity and
Maybe more of our story.
some more of our story.
Maybe.
And how God's shown us to break patterns over the years, 20 years. So, hope you guys enjoyed and have a great day.